Welcome to the Are We Idiots Show, where we question the status quo on society's important issues while mixing in plenty of laughs along the way. Now here are your hosts, Mark Weaver and Rich Kroll.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome to episode 100 of the Are We Idiots Show. We are your hosts, as always, Mark Weaver and Richard Kroll.
Mark Weaver, you know, I've grown to like you over the last 45 years. Not a lot of people were able to attain that acquired taste, but I've truly embraced it, and I'm a better man for it.
You are a better man, and you've lasted. There's a special place for you, Richie. You've lasted 99 episodes. We'll see if you can get through 100. But this is a special show. It's our what is it? What's 100? Is that that's not a gold or silver or anything like that. I think silver's a 50.
Is it a centennial?
I know it's centennial, but I didn't know if it was a particular metal. But
let's go with platinum.
I like that because it's special, and this is going to be a special show, as we've been telling our listeners over the last several weeks leading up to this. This will be the last show before we go on hiatus, and if you look at your podcast app as you were downloading the show,
anus? Oh, hiatus.
Not on the show. I don't. Other times I may have.
Thank you.
But if you notice on your podcast app, listeners.
Easy for you to say.
Yeah, I've termed this show Auf Wiedersehen, which is German for until we meet again.
So wait a minute right there.
Yeah.
I know there's a famous song or musical. Why did you go with the German phrase of until we meet again versus Italian, Spanish, French, Polish, etc.?
Because Weaver is, it's actually Pennsylvania Dutch is what they call it, but really it's German. And so it's mostly German, the Germanic folk settled in Lancaster County, which is where my namesake people came from. So I thought, and I also mostly thought it was just appropriate because I could have said no mas or, it's over, like Al Michaels. But because we're not sure, and we've been saying that consistently, we're saying Auf Wiedersehen, until we meet again. And when that is, we don't know, right, Richie?
We have no idea.
So we always start with the tip of the day, Rich, and, there's a little pressure on you because it's episode 100, our centennial episode. Make it a good one.
Mark, thank you for allowing me to give my 100th and best. I think I'm concluding as we get older that we are rushing our lives by too fast. We're too busy. We talked about jamming 25 hours in a 24-hour day, and I think we've eliminated margin in our lives. We're always going from one event to the next, one task to the next, one responsibility to the next. And I often see myself hoping that time flies by. Like, I want to lose 20 pounds. I can't wait to see what I look like in 3 months. Or I'm saving money for that TV. I can't wait to see if I've accomplished that 3 months from now. Or I'm going to go on vacation. I can't wait, till that 3 months goes by. And if you think about it, as we get older, time becomes more precious. We should really be slowing down and living in the moment, smelling the roses, even simple stuff like, you know what, I'm just going to savor this hot cup of coffee with some caramel creamer in it. I'm going to savor a sunset over the trees. I'm going to savor that little puppy crawling to take a crap in the corner of my yard.
Not the neighbor with allowing it to go on your driveway. We heard that story many episodes ago.
Again, we do have signs up now to please respect no poop zone. But, I just think we don't live in the moment and we miss a lot. So my advice to everyone is slow down, enjoy, and respect, and be grateful for what you have right now.
Yeah, and you've known me a long time, and those that know me best know that since I've been 4 years old, I've been always thinking about what's next, what's the future. I'm not a very sentimental person. I don't think about the past very much. And I've always been thinking about what's next. I remember at Disney World when my parents took us when we were 7, and when I was in Disney World, like the crescendo of a trip, and I said to my mom, well, what are we doing tomorrow? And she still reminds me of that. Like that's the way you were from a very little boy, and I'm still that way. I'm always thinking about and pondering future scenarios and pondering what I'm going to be doing next and down the road and in retirement. And I probably waste a lot of brain cells and energy and time doing that. And I, for one, need to try to enjoy the present a lot more. So that might have been directed right at me, Richie. But
No, I didn't have you. Although you are, it could have been directed at you as the poster child for that. But no, it was just directed in general. I find myself also not taking my own advice.
Well, that's great advice, and hopefully everyone takes that to heart and implements it. We definitely want to thank our patrons on our 100th show: Mark Zlotnikoff, Eric Weaver, George Muldoon, Chris Barbie, Dr. Dave Nadler, Alvaro Puga, Rick Linares, Darren Tapp, Scott Carney, Larry Helms, and Bill Gormley. And I know we've said it on many shows. Actually, we've been thanking our patrons almost every show. And we truly couldn't have gotten to 100 episodes without all of the support from the patrons. And we really appreciate it. I know that we've sent notes to them individually, but we really appreciate the support. And we literally couldn't have done it without you guys. I don't know if you wanted to say anything along those lines as well, Richie.
No, I'd like to thank everybody like you just did. I mean, half were probably a little more friendly or came in through you, and the other half a little more friendly that came in through me. But a lot of people don't realize there were costs behind the scenes to run the show. There was the initial equipment costs and everything that went into building the studio in your house. There were monthly hosting costs and streaming costs, and without our patrons, we definitely wouldn't have lasted this long. So we appreciate it, guys.
For sure. So on the show today, we're going to have 2 different flavors of Idiots of the Week, and that's been a very popular segment in our show since the beginning. Rich has some submissions from our listeners for some quick Idiots of the Week for this show, and then we're going to talk and we're going to crown the idiot of all time for our show. So basically, we've had 100 episodes over 3 years, and we're going to pick out the top 5 or 6 and crown the idiot of our show of all time. That should be fun. We'll get some laughs. And then we're going to spend the balance of the show just kind of reminiscing, talking about some episodes that were meaningful to us in various ways. And then we'll conclude the show for the final time. So, Richie, I want to throw it to you. You have some submissions of some idiots. What say you?
So I often plagiarized our listeners and patron submissions and, told everybody I found them. But I got to give credit where credit's due. A lot of them were given to me and they were darn good. And I'm going to use 3 from loyal listeners for our final Idiots of the Week nominations. The first comes from our good buddy up in the Boston area, George Muldoon. And he sent me the following. Naples man calls 911 about his erroneous McDonald's order and then tells police he has cocaine in his butt. That's typically how you would follow up with a bad burger, right?
Sure, right. Why not? They're very linked, those two.
So apparently 56-year-old Mustafa Uwardi called 911 3 times on a Wednesday morning from the McDonald's on Tamley Trail East Street. And he said, hey, they keep getting my burger wrong and I'm not leaving until they get it fixed. So then deputies showed up and, they said, dude, you can't be calling 911 for this. And just to make them more focused on his problem, he said, oh, and I have cocaine in my butt. Not your normal traditional follow-up to a police investigation, but they went through his car. I think they found some pot, and then he said, "Fine, take me to jail. I'm not leaving." And he raised his hands toward the deputy, and they escorted the disgruntled customer from McDonald's. So,
you know, when you're a rookie cop, that's the duty you get. The senior cops, the experienced cops, they give that duty to the rookies. All right, this guy claims he's got it in his butt. You got to go check.
it's just, I mean, it doesn't even cross my mind as one of the top 1,000 retorts to the police in that situation. Mind-blowing. All right, number 2. This one from probably our best submitter of Idiots of the Week, Larry Helms from Texas. But the irony is Larry never sent us one about anybody from Texas. They were all from Florida. I know he's a big Big 12 fan, University of Texas, and he has a lot against the SEC and Florida University and the Gators. So maybe that had something to do with it.
Sounds like you need some counseling or something, maybe.
Something's going on.
He's
there.
got some kind of like hidden bias against Florida, but we'll let him deal with that himself.
Yeah, there's a hidden agenda for sure. But I tell you, they were dead on. There's so many endless idiots from the great state of Florida, one of my favorite states. So this one, Florida man rides airboat on neighborhood streets while shooting off fireworks. So here's the thing.
Oh,
you have to understand, for those that don't know what an airboat is, you've probably seen them on National Geographic Channel or Jacques Cousteau or any kind of documentary or show about the Everglades.
Right.
I think there was even a weekly TV show back in the day that, it's a big metal boat, that's, fairly light, has a very high compartment and seat, like 6 feet in the air. And then it has an airplane, like a 10-foot airplane propeller behind it, which enables it to kind of glide along the water where there's a lot of those reeds and all the, vegetation in the in the Florida swamps and Everglades. But this guy took one down the street in Brevard County, and I guess this was New Year's Eve, and they were called to Mimosa Avenue around 11:30 p.m. and saw a man.
Avenue.
No pun intended.
He had 6 in him.
I think he had more like 16 mimosas in him. But they saw a man identified as Joseph Prohaska riding an airboat before finally pulling it into a neighbor's yard. He was knocking over trash cans and I guess other types of signs and things on people's lawns. And when they confronted him, he started to rev the engine and cause the disturbance. And he shouted at them, "I will kill you if you hurt him," referring to his father, who they threatened to take in to jail as well. So,
oh my goodness,
this guy,
he's multifaceted. He can drive an airboat on the street and shoot fireworks, and probably was drinking at the same time. Can you imagine the racket, though, Rich? That metal scraping along the street. I mean,
it's classic. I mean, I imagine it's fairly easy to drive on a swamp, but on metal streets to navigate with sparks flying everywhere, and he's shooting off his own sparks with fireworks up top, probably loaded to the gills on probably more than 16 mimosas. I just a classic scene to picture.
Awesome one. That's a great one. What's the last one?
This one may take the cake. This comes from my beloved brother-in-law, Michael Paget, who was a guest on our show a while back for Conspiracy Theories. And he sent me this one. Denmark launches children's TV show about a man with a giant penis. Now, this is wacko. because
the new Marvel Comics superhero.
It's frightening, right? So, John Dillermond has an extraordinary penis. So extraordinary, in fact, that it can perform rescue operations, etch murals, hoist a flag, and even steal ice cream from children.
And pitch a mean tent.
Are you kidding me?
That's his superpower.
It's mind-boggling. So the Danish equivalent of the BBC DR created this new animated series aimed at 4 to 8-year-olds.
Oh my goodness!
And a lot of
wrong with people?
What is wrong with countries? Right? I mean, I know we get a little annoyed at our far left liberal thinking in the U.S., but this is what's past extreme far left liberal.
Crazy.
Far left crazy.
Certified.
And a lot of people have complained and criticized their judgment, but there are people. There was a woman psychologist in Denmark defending it, saying it teaches people how to control themselves. But
oh, Rich, you just have these U.S. Puritan values that, aren't you just enlightened, Rich? And don't you want your 4 to 8-year-old to learn about this?
And people wonder why their kid grows up sometimes to be a deranged, cross-dressing, transgender, unhappy in life person. Maybe some of this has to do with it. So there's the nominations.
Yeah, and so that is an outrageous one. I mean, if it happened in the U.S., I probably would have given that the winner. But I can't. On our last Idiot of the Week, I can't give it to a Danish person, or a Danish country or the Danish education system. So great nominee. But I'm going to go with the multi-talented airboat driver in Florida that can be liquored up, drive an airboat on Macadam Street, withstand the sounds, and shoot fireworks. I'd love to know what kind of fireworks. If he was like tossing M80s and lighting them at the same time, that would really be impressive. But he gets my nomination. So, are we still sending? Are we still sending dollars at this point? Because
we have to send $1 to Brevard County to help with the legal bills here.
Or the street repair.
And the street repair.
All right, Richie. So we're going to continue the laughs. I hope, because we have to nominate our idiot of all time. We've been doing this for 100 episodes, and I know I've mentioned it on many shows that when we were first putting the show together, I'm certainly a more serious person, and Rich is a little bit more fun loving, and he's like, we can't be all serious, we got to have a fun segment, and we came up with this Idiots of the Week, and I am so glad that we did that, because we've had a lot of laughs over 100 episodes. So here, Rich, I submit to you my top 5 nominees for Idiot of all time. So our most recent one, I have to go with the 2020 Idiot of the Year, and that was, and we won't go into too much detail because the listeners heard about that 2 weeks ago, but it was the Mexican man who, upon going out on his first date, he decided to take bull Viagra to be ready. And a bull's what, 2,000 pounds, and a man is 200 pounds. And the dosage wasn't quite right for him, and he had a lot of complications. Let's just leave it that he nearly died. But he's definitely nominee number 1. Any comments on him before we go to
this? This is horrifying on multiple levels. First of all, and I know it's a liberal society where you can go on websites and have a date in 10 minutes, but what guy comes out of the gate, all guns a blaring, expecting fireworks on the very first date, right? I mean, that's a little assumptive. I know it happens, but
not in the Tinder days. Evidently, that's pretty common.
But still, to just assume, hey, this is gonna, I'm gonna get some action. I've never met this person before, and then to be so virulent that you have to take not just Viagra, bull Viagra, which could literally explode a human man's head
Or heart, for
or
sure.
heart or brain.
Yeah.
Right? And the last piece is I remember reading the article, and it said literally, like, there was nothing they could do. I mean, this was like an exploding missile, and they had to take him in, like a scene with Mick from Rocky, the cut man, like, cut me, Mick. And they had to cut him, otherwise he would have exploded. So just mind-blowing.
Bull Viagra would only be appropriate for that superhero from Denmark.
No, now that's a good combination. Maybe I will watch that show.
All right, Richie. So then we go back to the prior year, 2019, where there was actually two very, very strong nominees. We ended up selecting the second one, but the first one that was the runner-up, which could win any other year, was the young millennial lady who wanted to be an Instagram star and photographed herself licking the toilet seat in an airplane. And if you remember the photograph I showed you, Rich, she had a lot of piercings and tattoos, and not that we're judging that, but she was quite pierced up and quite photogenic, I guess is the best way I'd say it. But what do you think of that nominee that didn't win?
That one curdles my stomach, because when you think about it, if you've ever been on a flight, cross country, or even just, a couple time zones, what goes on in those tiny bathrooms should never leave the state. And, I think she did end up contracting some disease or some sickness. I don't know exactly what it was, but yeah, you're famous, but you're famous for being an idiot. So, folks, don't even lick your own toilet seats in your house. It just doesn't make sense.
And then the winner of 2019, and I might add, Rich, a very strong candidate for idiot of all time, is the famous young man from Southern California that legally changed his name to Sexy Vegan and had it tattooed across his forehead. And he came to prominence because he was arrested for having sexual contact with a pit bull. So, for any number of reasons, Sexy Vegan won the 2019 Idiot of the Year, and I submit to you a very strong candidate for the winner of this overall.
He is so deserving on multiple levels. I mean, first of all, I know a lot of people through the ages that have changed their name, right? Whether it's changing to your Muslim name like Muhammad Ali, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. We've had plenty of people change their name to one name, Sting, whatever the case may be. But to go out on a limb and say, you know what, I'm going to put ink to paper and make this legal with Sexy Vegan. First of all, I'm impressed. If you're a meat eater, maybe you're overweight, maybe you have high cholesterol or a heart problem. Okay, I think you could become sexy by becoming a vegan. But as an adjective, not your legal name. Then to go and tattoo it on your forehead, and it looked like the guy did it himself, looking in a mirror, like writing the letters in reverse. It was a horrible tattoo job, so he has to live with that for the rest of his life. Then, if that's not enough, you get in the news by having sex with a pit bull. Now, there's a lot of choices out there when it comes to having sex with dogs. You can choose a friendly poodle,
Oh man,
or maybe whatever the case may be. How about something that can literally, eat you for lunch? I don't get it. It is one of the most disturbing and insane idiots of the week we ever had.
And thankfully his diet's good, so he'll live a long life with that tattoo on his forehead. All right, Richie. So the last two are from our first year, and the two finalists in that year were The first one was the man, elderly Asian man, who wanted to test his endurance by frying himself in an industrial-sized wok along with his dinner, and it didn't work out too well for him. He actually died.
I remember this one, and I my dear sister Sadika is a yoga instructor, and we love Asian food, and there's a lot of good that comes from Eastern philosophy of meditating, and it ties into my tip of the day with living in the moment and relaxing and slowing down. But here's a guy, and I remember reading the article with this too. He had to have his family and friends help him in this 12-foot industrial wok. By the way, who fries enough food for a family of 4,000? I don't get that part either. And I've done hot yoga. It's very effective. You get in a room 100 degrees, you do yoga for 40 minutes, you sweat your butt off. It's incredible. But you only need it to be 100 degrees. You don't need it to be 195 or 200 degrees, which also cooks meat. I know he had rice in there and some other things. And then,
I sure hope they didn't eat any of the food.
Yeah, exactly. Picture the people sitting there, with their legs folded in some type of yoga position, and they're umming together, and then the ums get louder, and he starts banging on the wok. I mean, just another classic. I don't want to make fun of anyone killing themselves, but when you do it with this level of stupidity, you're an idiot.
Yeah. And then the last of the 5 submissions, Rich, was from a similar region of the world, a young man who was having problems with constipation, big problems. And in order to remedy it, he thought of a home remedy, Rich. He didn't want to take the normal elixirs. He decides to try to unclog himself by inserting a giant eggplant up inside himself to try to unclog himself, and it went in too far. And we actually showed each other the X-ray of this aubergine up inside of him, and had to have it removed.
On the surface, this was a great idea. We've all been constipated. It's a very uncomfortable feeling. Sometimes it takes a laxative an hour to work. And if you get really annoyed and uncomfortable, I can see, how about starting with a ballpoint pen? Let's do something smaller than the area down there. He goes right for the coup de grace with an 18-inch eggplant.
He wanted immediate relief.
And how do you keep going once you get to like that 6 to 8 inch mark? I don't think I could have got past 1 or 2 inches. That X-ray, it literally looked like it was between his lungs. It was so horrifying.
So Richie, there are 5 strong nominees. You have the difficult job of selecting the idiot of all time, and it's tough.
But I'm willing to take on the tough assignments. And this was a hard one. And they're all deserving, and thank you. But when one guy can win it for multiple reasons within the same nomination, you have to give it to Sexy Vegan.
I agree wholeheartly. He was definitely in my finals. I might have picked the wok guy or the cucumber or the eggplant, but for sure, Sexy Vegan, he rises above. He is the trifecta. He hit the trifecta, didn't he? The tattoo.
Only thing Sexy Vegan didn't do that we're aware of was also try to shove an 18-inch zucchini up his butt. Maybe that combined would be the best.
Well, he definitely deserves something beyond $1. I don't even know what we'll come up with, but he definitely gets our idiot of all time, and I will make sure I put him in this. I'll hashtag Sexy Vegan in the show notes. All right, Richie. So we're going to spend the rest of the time. Looks like we have about 20 minutes or so left, 25 maybe at the most, and we're going to kind of reminisce and celebrate our body of work. And again, we've had 100 episodes plus our preface. And speaking of our preface, let's go back in time a little bit about, real quickly why we started the show. We obviously wanted to, fulfill or scratch our entrepreneurial itch. We wanted to do something that a lot of people don't do. We wanted to be creative and use our creative juices to create a show that didn't exist. And we already mentioned that I wanted something a little bit more serious, and you wanted something a little bit more funny. And so we blended it together and tried to combine the both. And that's the format that we came up with that ended up being the Are We Idiots show. I was very upfront on the preface episode that I also had a secondary motivation. I'm a longtime libertarian, and libertarians are known to be the worst at marketing and attracting new libertarians. I'm talking about the Libertarian Party specifically, but this was my little outlet to try to put a libertarian spin on several of society's big issues. So I didn't do that every episode. I tried to not, over proselytize libertarian on the show. I wanted to do it in a reasonable way, in a fun way, and I weaved it in whenever I could. But Richie, I guess that's what I'll first start. What are your feelings now? From the difference between how you felt when we started and now 100 episodes in. What's your big picture summary of it?
Well, before I answer that, I'll say, you did the Libertarian Party very well. You got at least over the 3 years, 15 people to vote for Jo Jorgensen. So good job there. That's better than the Libertarian Party themselves created.
That's quite a payoff, isn't it?
Quite a payoff.
1,000 hours for 15 votes.
Yeah, the return on effort's not quite there. But no, it was interesting. When you first asked me to do this, I'm like, what? What are you talking about? What does this even mean? But when I thought about it, I said, this could be fun, right? And you and I have known each other since junior high school, now known as middle school. And we've had a lot of experiences together, playing sports together, golfing together, going down the South Jersey Shore together, coaching together, on and on. So I thought it was the right combo where, you're serious as a heart attack, and sometimes I don't take things serious enough. So I learned a lot. I mean, bottom line, we don't have a lot of opportunities to go back to school. I mean, I know there are people that go back after the fact as an adult to get their master's degree or an online degree or whatever. I kind of felt like I was back in school in a good way. I wasn't very political before we started the show, but I had learned a heck of a lot about a lot of topics that I would have really never known about, but it forced me to research and read and learn things I wasn't really familiar with. So,
if nothing else, just to harass me on the show.
Oh, that alone was worth the price of admission.
But no, I feel the same way that there's lots of subjects that I either have no interest in or are not very inclined towards. Certainly art and the hard sciences, as we joked about on many shows, physiology, biology, so it's just definitely not my strength. And you taught me a lot of things as well. And just to add on to what you said, I knew when I was starting this show that no one would want to listen to just me rant day in and day out on the Mark Weaver show about libertarian, how superior it is. And I knew it had to be a mix of things. And when I don't have many friends, Rich, as you often kid me about, but I have enough that I considered a bunch of people, and there really was only one answer for this. And you ended up being the perfect fit. The show wouldn't have happened without you, and wouldn't have been 100 episodes and 900 or 1,000 people a month listening to us without you. You're much more of a natural entertainer. I got to work at it, to be honest. And, I really, truly appreciate the partnership. And as we've said, it didn't manifest itself into the business that we wanted. But both Rich and I feel that this was not unsuccessful. I think we're proud of what we put out. and I think it was worthy, and it just didn't end up breaking through the internet noise to become a self-sustaining business. That's the only thing that we can look back and say, yeah, that part we didn't do, and it's probably because we had other priorities that rated above it. That's just the truth of the matter.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I think, we have our day jobs, we have our families, we have, this was more of a side hobby to have fun with. In some respect, I'm surprised it grew to 1,000 listeners, just purely word of mouth. We didn't do any advertising. We didn't spend any additional money on trying to connect with influencers or other famous podcasts. So in a way, it was proportionally more successful than I thought. And I appreciate the kind words, but don't sell yourself short. You are actually, in a weird way more entertaining than you give yourself credit for. It's and you're easygoing. I mean, through all the years, you take kidding well, and you give it back pretty well as well. So no, it was great. And who knows? Where this maybe we'll come back. But for now, it was just time for a break.
Yeah. And I think that's one thing I've definitely learned is that when I first got into this, I thought if we just did a good job and we were funny and were creative and had a unique format, that we could just grow it organically. And I'm not saying that couldn't have happened if we put more time into it, but the reality is almost all of the successful podcasts were famous people that went into podcasting. They were famous for something else and they used their name to build a podcast. So not an excuse. I'm a kind of a bottom line, take the blame guy, but at the end of the day, it was our fault for not growing it, but it was hard because we weren't famous, Rich, other than in Havertown. You're a legend in Havertown, but
one town, a legend in my own mind.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about some favorite shows, Richie. And I maxed it out at 10 as my own rule, and I broke it into 3 different categories. One is edginess, 2 is impactfulness, and thirdly in priority, of course, it's me, fun. So not as many shows for me that were fun, but because I struggle in that area. So for edginess, I'll list 4 or 5 shows and you can comment accordingly. So in my mind, out of the 100, the ones that I thought were edgy, meaning it took some guts to talk about the subject because they're very emotional. Guns in America, very early on. Obesity, fairly early on. Rap music, getting a pass. Abortion, and then either the racism or the white privilege show, which both of those were in the last 6 months. So what do you think about any of those or other shows that you think might qualify for edginess?
Well, when you say edgy, I guess it's really a controversial subject that is sensitive or people are even afraid to talk about because, if they're not qualified or respected, what the heck do a bunch of grumpy 50-year-old white guys know about, abortion or racism, from both sides. But I'll tell you how I'm pretty convinced we did a good job of that objectively because we didn't get any feedback calling us idiots. And I know, especially me, more than you, out of those 1,000 listeners, 500 would have no problem texting me or picking up the phone and going, Rich, Kroller, what are you, a knucklehead? I can't believe what you said about that topic. And no one ever did. So they were edgy, but I think we did our research. We researched both sides and tried to look at it from all sides. And if I were in their shoes, and what does this mean? And what does that mean? Whether it was personal, professional, cultural, ethnicity, religion, female, male, you name it. I don't think we were always right, but I don't think we ever crossed the line of just being egregiously jerks.
Yeah, and if you think about back to our first show, and I guess you would call it a core tenet of this show, is free speech, right? And we talked on that first show or that preface show about just being disagreeable. Disagreeing without being disagreeable. And, in this climate that we're in now, the person that disagrees with you is your mortal enemy. And so, especially on these edgy topics, wouldn't it be better if we could all talk about it and come from different views and still not hate the person that has an alternative view? I mean, so that's the other reason that I'm glad that we did those shows, because I think more people need to not be afraid of getting called out if they misspoke. So I'm glad we did it, and I agree with you. I think we did a pretty good job handling those delicate subjects.
Yeah, the only thing I'll say to that is, from an edgy standpoint, a lot of people liked when we argued. And we didn't argue all the time. Some shows we agreed with each other 90 to 100%. But there were some shows we were on opposite sides of the debate. And one show in particular, when we covered the CARES Act, I think I was getting annoyed at you and you were getting annoyed at me. And not that either one of us was right or wrong. It's just.
Oh, I was probably right. Let's be honest. Come on.
Yeah, you were. If we took a survey of our listeners, 800 of the 1,000 were on my side most of the time.
There's a lot of people that are really lost out there, Richie.
But I had defended that little mom pa shop in our neighborhood that's been there for 80 years. The little bakery or pizza shop or tailor or dry cleaner. And if COVID was going to put them out of business, I thought they're the ones that should be helped. It wasn't their fault. But you would vehemently disagree with me. But we agreed on, because you went like a weirdo and read the whole CARES Act. God bless you. 800 pages of nonsense. And the amount of nonsense I was educated on that was in that about where all this money was going to go. Let's create another $1 trillion in debt to go prop up a gender evaluation study of frogs. Like, are you kidding me? So, we had some good arguments as well.
Yeah, I agree, and I think all relationships, have a segment of the relationship where you don't always get along. And heck, I've been married for 33 years. Trust me, when you're married, you don't get along with your spouse all the time. So we had a couple little disagreements on and off the air, and hey, we got through the speed bump. The problem with that particular show, Rich, is you went into economics, and it's like me going into biology. You just strayed too far outside of your lane, man. I had to pull you back.
Yeah, I got outside my comfort zone for sure.
I also read the whole Mueller report, which was actually a lot worse than the CARES Act,
which makes you a certifiable.
Right. So, all right. So let's move along. Next category I have is impactfulness, and you could take aim at maybe that's not the right word, but I identified 3 particular shows that I thought were on a subject that was critical that we have to deal with as a society. One was, I already mentioned a few weeks ago, was the socialism warnings, about Venezuela, the striking example of what socialism has done to the neighbor to our south in just 20 years. We talked a little bit about it on the year-end review show a couple weeks ago, so I won't go into that too much, but that is a critical issue, and we're getting a lot of calls in this country for more and more free college, free health care, eliminating all student debt, everything free from the AOC and her ilk. So that's something that we're going to have to deal with as a society. The second one was the immediate gratification nation show, and that was IGN very early on. And if you think about it, we did another show on personal finance basics. We've had a couple shows that were in the financial realm, but one of the biggest problems, and like surveys say that like 90% of Democrats and 80% of Republicans say that there's a retirement crisis coming. And it all comes back to, and I've preached it many times, that we are an immediate gratification nation. We are the worst when it comes to saving money. And it manifested itself when the COVID hit. We were closed up for 2 weeks and people were out of money. And it's a huge, huge problem. It's only going to get worse. We're a debt-laden society. And I'm glad we brought that up on the IGN show and other shows, but that was that. And then lastly, Rich, we dealt with education, and education is also a critical issue in our society. And we had a K through 12 education. show, which I talked about teachers union strength and vouchers for alternatives, and then the value of a college degree, which I think this year during COVID, everyone's second guessing that now, thankfully. So I think those three were what I'll call the impactful shows, but maybe you can quibble with that.
No, I think they're all great choices. I would also say, I think one of our most downloaded episodes was Helicopter Parenting.
Yes.
And as you know, throughout the years, I have completely bashed millennials or Gen Zers or whatever the name is for young folk 20 to 30. And I never meant to bash every single one of them. Obviously, there's millennials in both of our families that are great people, hard workers. But, I truly believe there's nothing like the old school World War II generation and, not being spoiled, not taking anything for granted, showing up every day, earning everything you have. Today's world's very entitled and spoiled. And, in the show, we even read a book and researched a lot of stuff for the show. And, what put me over the edge was that survey across the country. It was several thousand millennials. And the conclusion was that they all felt they could retire by the time they're 35 with only working 30 hours a week, and they would have at least $1 million in retirement savings. And where, and then we also concluded a lot of it is the parents' fault. Kind of like Meet the Fockers for giving out 10th place medals and doing homework for their kids and never, complaining to teachers when anything was challenging or coaches when their kid doesn't play. And you often stuck up for, hey, let the chips fall where they fall. If your kid's not good at sports or art or music, don't try to create something where you want to live vicariously through your kids, because you couldn't either. Right. So, as much as I blame the millennials, it's equal at fault are today's parents. And I thought that was a great episode that we put a lot of research into.
Yeah, it's probably the most research you did in any show. But the only thing I would add to that is I've also on many shows castigated. You like that word? Castigated the baby boomers for their leadership, their political leadership. If you think about over the last 2 decades between, I guess, Clinton, Bush, Obama, and Trump technically is not a baby boomer. He just missed it by a year or two. But they've all been profligate, and of course the senators and congressmen and women that have gone along with it. But they're burying us in with $29 trillion in debt. So the baby boomers, not only have we been overall pretty bad parents by raising some of these helicopter kids, but also the political leadership's been absolutely awful.
And one other, don't forget your daughter. I think it was Alexa who did the cryptocurrency show with us.
Yeah, for sure.
That was I learned a lot. I mean, bright young woman on a great career path in a great industry. And I thought that was a great, impactful show as well.
As her father, it makes me a little nervous that they invest in that stuff. It's a little too dicey for me. That Bitcoin and Ethereum is very, very volatile. I'm too old for that kind of volatility.
They'll be millionaires before you ever were.
All right, so we have to move along, Richie. So I had 2 shows in particular that kind of off the top of my head came in as real fun, and I know there was a lot more, but. And it just so happens that the 2 shows that I remember having the most fun on were Pet Peeves with my brother Eric was in the studio, and then the Seinfeld episode with my brother-in-law Grammy. And again, maybe it's biased because they're my brother and brother-in-law, and I fully admit to that. But I remember having a lot of fun with those. Obviously, Pet Peeves was like Grumpy Old Men 4, and a lot of people liked that show. That was a highly downloaded show. And then the Seinfeld was just such an impactful show in our generation that maybe I'm biased about that as well. But thoughts on fun shows? And you're the king of fun, Richie.
Oh, thanks, Marcus. They were great fun. And, we did those in the studio. We shared a a glass of scotch or whatever with your brother and your brother-in-law. And, maybe there's some bias because that was our era, but there was a lot of laughs. And, both Eric and Grammy have a great sense of humor. But, there were other, I think, the fun, for us, the most fun shows were the ones with guests. And the others for me that were really enjoyable were Boston versus Philadelphia with George Muldoon. And we had you argue Philly and George argue Boston across multiple categories.
I'm still getting over you liking the Patriots on that episode, though. I'm still trying to shake that off.
Respect. Never said like. Respect. But much to George's dismay, I gave the winning city to Philadelphia by a quarter inch. Chris Barbs did it. We had a great fun show about political correctness run amok. And although Barbs is a quiet talker, just like from Seinfeld episode, that was a lot of fun. Rick Linares, we did the Christmas special recently with top
for sure
10 favorite Christmas songs and Christmas movies. Johnny Brazier, my buddy, who's the director of Fun and Games for the last 30 years for the Phillies, told some amazing stories. We had a lot of laughs in that episode. And then, although, obviously when you say something's fun, it often means laughter, joviality, fun. But I had fun in a serious way when John Barr came in the studio, award-winning ESPN investigative reporter who covered the horrendous Larry Nassar scandal with the U.S. women's Olympic team, Michigan State Olympic team, Youth Olympics. Just heart-wrenching. But it was enjoyable to do that show and publicize, someone who should be put away forever. But there were a lot of shows that were a lot of fun.
Yeah, for sure. And of course, out of the 100, we only mentioned 10 or so here. There was a lot of other good ones. There was some real obscure ones. I remember you came up with the idea, what is time? I remember that was like, what in the world is he going to talk about? And it turned out to be a pretty unique episode. I remember when I pitched to you zoning laws, which again, it turned out to be a pretty fun episode overall. So there was a lot of them in there for the listeners. If you haven't heard our downloads, we may extend the downloads into February because this is right up against the deadline. But basically, within a month, the shows were not going to be available. So if you want any of these 100, make sure you download them. And by the way, before I forget, I want to thank Eric and Grammy as well for their contribution to the show from the music perspective and the intro and outro work that Grammy did. It was a big help to have that, and that theme of the show was consistent throughout with both Eric and Grammy's help. So, Richie, as we conclude, any thoughts? I love the Steve Jobs Stanford commencement address. If listeners, if you haven't ever Googled that, go and Google Steve Jobs Stanford commencement address. It's very short, but it's one of the best commencement addresses I've ever heard. But one of the things he says in there is you can only connect dots looking backwards. Like, it's very hard to predict the future, and no one could look forward 10 years and predict what the next 10 years are going to be like. But if you look back 10 years, you can say, wow, well, I did this here, and that led to this here, and this here, and this here. And he cited some examples of that. So my question to you, Richie, is we did this. We're taking a hiatus. Does this lead anywhere for either you or I?
No.
To something else. Maybe you're going to be an actor. Maybe you're going to be a thespian on the stage, a Newtown Square sound stage or something.
Did you just call me a lesbian?
Thespian.
Thespian. I got you. No, and all kidding aside, who knows, right? I mean, we're taking a break. Maybe we're taking a break forever. I think there's a good chance 50-50 will come back. We get a wild hair, that gets us going again. But I learned a lot. Again, the show would have not happened without you. I'm pretty good. If you give me an inch, I'll make it into a yard. But I'm never the guy that's good at starting the initial domino. You're the catalyst. You'll always be a good friend of mine. And I will remind listeners because this, right now all the shows are, you can go to iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify. Make sure if you don't have all the shows downloaded, and for you technically inept and challenged friends of mine, when you go into those, you go to the right-hand side. You can either hit subscribe to all or click on the little cloud icon, and make sure you download all the shows to your smartphone so that you can pick these up, when you're driving somewhere, on an airplane, or doing a workout. But I really appreciate everybody that listened to the show, and I'm grateful we did it.
Yeah. And I will echo that. Thanks to all the listeners, and I think there's some loyal ones out there that probably listen to all of our episodes. We don't know you by name, but if you're out there and you did that, that's quite a feat. And just like with the patrons, without you, the audience, we would not have continued on for 100 episodes. And I would just like to close by saying that, hey, you're my good friend, Richie. And as I said earlier, I couldn't imagine this show existing without you. And I'm thankful that you're here to be part of this, and look forward to 30 more years of friendship. And, like I said, it probably won't be the Mark Weaver show talking about libertarianism, but you never know. We may get another idea. Now that I know how I spent all this time learning how to do podcasts, maybe something else will happen in the future, but who knows?
Dilly.
All right. So, Richie, I'm going to put our normal sign off. I'm going to put a little different spin on it for you. As always, please remember, if what you see or hear sounds idiotic, then hopefully we've been the guys to help you sort it out. Auf Wiedersehen, and be well, everyone.
Thank you for listening. Please download, subscribe, share, and review on Apple Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, and also our website.